welcome to UC Today. My name is Kieran Devlin, and today's session is Cisco WebEx's formula for mastering modern meeting rooms. A bit of a tongue twister to open the video. I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Richards, Senior Director of Strategy and Planning at Cisco. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Good to meet you, Kieran, and great to be on the call, and really happy to be discussing some of the stuff we're working on in Cisco to help our customers with some of these big transitions we're all going through.
Absolutely. It is in a very exciting time for collaboration spaces. Before we explore exactly how you guys are mastering modern meeting rooms, got it in one that time, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, Tom, and your Cisco journey?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what am I doing currently? Let's start there. Currently, as you said, I work kind of strategy, I guess strategy and planning within the collaboration team within Cisco. It's been an interesting journey to get to where I am now. I'm primarily, if you like, from a collaboration perspective, I came out of the devices world more than anything. I spent, decades working in the devices world. And I love that world. I think what is very interesting is the devices world lives in this combination of both, I think, a kind of traditional collaboration and enabling traditional collaboration, of which we need to think about multiple meeting platforms. And I'll go into that a little bit later. The other is that we live in the infrastructure for future-proof work. And so devices are no longer just a collaboration element. They're much more than that. And I think that has always interested me. It has interested me for many, many years. So that's kind of how I've got to where I am now. The journey started with an acquisition of a startup company that I founded with a bunch of other people. We were a bunch of PhDs, just finished our AI PhDs in the late 90s, which is showing my age here, bought by Cisco and brought in to deal with voice over IP at the time, guaranteeing voice over IP services. Spent a few years doing that within Cisco, and then pretty quickly started gravitating out of the core network and into what are the end users doing. And then I got into the collaboration team and got into the sort of service models and these kind of things, probably 2008. And then from there into the endpoints, working with the Tandberg team at the acquisition in 2010. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So an interesting voyage from, if you like, core networks and guaranteeing services using AI through to AI as it applies to the edge and endpoints and how we deliver a great service to our end user community.
Absolutely, and that breadth of experience and expertise positions you nicely for, I guess, our opening main question, where we've gone for a more holistic state of the industry before we dive into WebEx specifics. What would you say are some of the major trends and challenges you're observing organizations currently face in modernizing their meeting spaces?
A great question. So I think there's kind of a couple of key challenges, and I think you mentioned it in kind of introducing, Cisco's focus. Scale is at the heart of everything, and it is scale with budgets that are not evolving or changing now. So you've got a critical need to be able to get coverage of your spaces, so that when people come back to the office from having been working at home, they feel very comfortable that they can use any meeting room to get into any meeting and connect with anybody remotely who's not in the meeting room in a highly effective way. That is what we call fundamental to earning the commute of the worker who's returning to the office from home. And so to be able to deal with that, we need to be able to deliver simplicity. We need to be able to deliver an open platform that allows you to get into whichever meetings you've been invited to. And you also need to be comfortable about using the space, the physical space, finding available space, using it both in a scheduled way and an ad hoc way. Those are the sort of crucial underpinnings to earn the commute. That's challenge one. I think challenge two is that we also have to recognize that companies all over the globe are having to rethink how real estate is being used and the ROI of that real estate. We are a fundamental part of that. So, when we are deploying and investing in technology, We're not just about making sure you can get into your meetings and have a great experience when you're in those meetings and connect with both local and remote, colleagues and counterparts. But it's also about is the building a healthy place for me to be? Do I have good engagement? Is the facilities team? We talk about scaling of and the IT teams to deliver the technology. I also need to think about scaling the facilities teams to be able to manage these spaces effectively. All of those questions we are not immune to as vendors of technology into these spaces. We are a part of that wider solution. So that, I think, is the other key challenge that we're focused on, is being able to address that as well and be part of that, and to consolidate the investments that customers have been making. And I say customers, we Cisco are a customer of these very same challenges. Historically, the budgets to focus on these different aspects are very forked. And so that's some of the challenge now, to say, look, we are delivering a solution that allows you to minimize duplicate spend so that your investments in a room system should cover facilities needs, collaboration needs, technology needs, across the globe. So, sorry, that's a long way of saying, these are the challenges that we're seeing. These are some of the things that are driving us as well in terms of development.
No, it's very comprehensive, but I think we're seeing the exact same things ourselves, where it's not just, as you say, IT managers, it's facilities managers that are now being brought in, it's the real estate aspects as well. And I guess, touching on the interaction between maybe previously thought separate entities, how would you say WebEx devices and software collaborate to create a more intuitive and intelligent meeting experience for both in-person and perhaps just as crucially in the last 5 years, remote participants?
Yeah, so I guess that's one of the most important things. Like if we think about this conceptually, right? The way I've worked remotely, by the way, for now coming on 20 years, right? So this is not a new experience for me. What has been the evolution? The evolution there is that we've had technology that allows remote workers to get into meetings with video and audio and content share for many years. But the experience has been, I am an adjunct. I am a spoke where the hub is the meeting room, the in meeting, the in-room participants. That was pre-COVID. COVID happened, everybody goes home. Now the focal point of the meeting, the sort of gravitational center of the meeting, is everybody at home. And anybody who's in a meeting room is kind of like, okay, they're a bit like the exception. And now we're in a situation where that gravitational point of the meeting exists between the on-premise and the remote worker or the home worker. And that's the balance that we need to achieve, is everybody needs to feel like conceptually they're in the room, and that wherever the camera looks and whatever the microphones listen to and wherever I get content from is what I would want to look at and what I would want to hear if I were in the room. That's the AI, like at the heart of it, that's the AI, the goal of the AI. And the key is the users should never, in our view, have to interact with the technology. The users are trying to get a meeting done to be able to decide on whatever the product development, whatever the meeting is about, not to manage the AV in the room or the views for remote participants. That just shouldn't happen. And AI is there to help us. So when we then go into a development of what we're doing from a kind of room deployment perspective, is we need the horsepower in the devices to allow for AI development to be built to be able to deliver to that goal. And that's really at the heart of what we do in Cisco from an endpoint investment. We made a decision, it's now 10 years ago, which I always say I lament that I didn't have the foresight to invest in NVIDIA in 2015. But we made a decision that we would put NVIDIA chipsets across our portfolio of devices. And hats off to our hardware engineering team and software engineering team who led that decision. It was a very prescient decision. We weren't even talking about AI, frankly, at that time. But this was really about building an AI-based or an AI-ready architecture. And now we have this ever-expanding roadmap of AI-ready capabilities to deliver whatever meeting type you're having in a very, very simple way. And so that's kind of, the major investments. And then the other part I think that AI plays in this is we have to make deployment simple, because if we're going to get to scale, deployment needs to happen really, really fast. I should not have to go through heavy configurations. I should not have to then go through reconfigurations if I change the room layout. AI should do all that for us as well. And so I think that's the other big investment that we've made to be able to really try to help this, both scaling at the front end, but also then scaling the experience for the user communities at the back end.
Fantastic. And I guess this is actually a very elegant segue into my next question, which was about the deployment and management of this technology. Can you please go into a bit more detail about how Cisco is helping these end-user organizations simplify the deployment and management of the tech at scale?
Absolutely. So I guess there's the deployment steps. So let's talk about that first. So the deployment steps, at the low end, there should be a consolidation. When I say at the low end, the smallest rooms, these should arguably being deployed up, and there's caveats about drilling holes in walls and these kind of things that changes what I'm about to say. But generally, these should drop in and get configured in minutes and move on to the next room. And we have customers who have delivered thousands of these types of rooms in a couple of months, right? That's the kind of timeline that we should expect. Those rooms should be really, really simple. So that's sort of part one of the simplicity. And then, of course, when I've done that deployment, I should have the horsepower and capabilities that these will continue to be high-value functioning systems for a significant period of time. So I don't have to revisit in a couple of years and upgrade and change and so on and so forth. They need to have the horsepower to be, in place for years. As we move up the stack of rooms, they're standard rooms, taking the same approach, simplify, remove complexity. Ideally, as we start thinking about, for example, microphone deployments. Microphones should self-configure. We should not have to go in and configure those devices unless there's very special cases. Generally, they should have a mechanism to be able to drop in and understand the space, the echo cancellation requirements and the configurations, and its proximity to the main device, and then it configures itself. We've taken another key approach, which is wherever we can drive things over IP. And that means both the power as well as the media and signaling. And when we do that, we then remove things like the need for a DSP. The DSP is kind of embedded in the microphone architecture. And in doing so, that simplifies the architecture. The power side of this, if you're doing the power over Ethernet, that means you don't have to put power drops in spaces to be able to deploy a camera or a microphone. So that's the other major investments that we've been making to simplify the deployments. On the manageability side, I simplify the deployment in terms of what goes in the room. And then I have a management platform. We use a system called Control Hub. That management platform then allows me to be able to look at everything in the room and be able to understand what's going on at all times. Have I lost connection to a camera? Can I remotely reboot the camera, for example? Those are the kind of things that I want to be able to do from a single pane of glass. Can I look into the room? Can I control the UI remotely? So these are really fundamental things for the management teams at scale, rather than having to worry about, hey, where, have I got somebody local who can run into the room and, flick a switch or reboot a system? So that's the other piece of this, is simplifying the architecture. And then I think the last piece to touch on is we need to be able to drop into any environment. And this is, I hope I'm not jumping ahead in terms of some of your questions, but our systems need to be able to recognize we're an infrastructure. We're an element of an infrastructure that goes into customers who are using WebEx or Microsoft Teams or Zoom or Google or combinations typically of the above. That's really what we see. We must function effectively with all of this AI, and all this manageability has to be deliverable in those environments. And I think that's the other key part, I think, of delivering scalability.
Yeah, well, I've got one final question before I let you go, Tom, and I think it is touching on what you alluded to there. Can you please share some practical examples of how customers are using WebEx to transform their meeting spaces and the kind of impact that's being illustrated via productivity and user satisfaction?
Yeah. So I think, a lot of what I've discussed is the endpoint environment and the endpoint architecture. When we think about the WebEx platform and what the WebEx meetings experiences are now, I guess what I would say is um, we recognize, I think, so much of the needs that our customers are having in terms of uh, looking into rooms as a remote participant and getting the right views for those. And so, an example of this is having a stream that gives me an overview of a room and a stream that gives me a concentrated view or a specific view of the speaker that's speaking in the room allows me to get full context of what's going on in these spaces as a remote participant. So I can see, for example, like if you're talking to me, Kieran, and you were in a room with Andy and Ayala and others, I would see whether Andy and Ayala were listening to what you're saying and agreeing or disagreeing with it. And in particular, that's important if we're having kind of an ongoing discussion, you and I may be disagreeing. I think these are the things that really benefit. Again, this is about allowing users the experience of being in the room while being remote. This is the sort of stuff that WebEx really allows. There is, of course, then the whole AI stack above that says, I don't want to have somebody's mind used up with making sure they're taking the minutes and the action items. I also want to be able to work with teams from all over the world. Many of our customers have multiple sites with multiple locations with multiple languages. How do I transcribe? How do I translate? How do I summarize? The other thing is, and I'm guilty of this. My typical day has overlapping meetings. And often what I do is I'm like, I'm going to give 10 minutes to that. It's really important. Then I'm going to cut out and go to the other meeting. I need a summary and I need somebody to know that I'm in the meeting. This is key to us being able to have these very, very simple experiences, being able to live in this quite kind of ad hoc and complex and ever-changing world. I think these are the things that make, I think, that combo of devices plus the WebEx platform what is now, I think, a really highly differentiated experience going forward. And again, all of that said, the other key piece of this is Control Hub. So when I think of the WebEx platform, it's not just about meetings. It's not just about calling services. It's not just about polling and events, all of which are excellent. But it's about also the underlying manageability which Control Hub provides. And then the ability, again, we deliver all of these capabilities like our solution with Microsoft, which is an MTR based solution. These things come together where you can actually have a full MTR native experience and also experience a native WebEx experience as well on our devices. And so allowing for these kind of combinations, I think, is another really big change and a really big differentiator from I think any other offerings I've seen across the industry today.
Absolutely. I do wonder if that sort of seamless, harmonious interoperability is going to be the real path forward in 2, 3, 5 years time, whether we'll see that even expanded even further.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm quite sure.
yeah, I think that's all we've got time for today, but it's been a terrific session. So thank you, Tom, for being here.
Super. Thank you, Kieran, and look forward to the next round.
Absolutely. And we'll see you then. And if you
Take care.
enjoyed this video, please give a like and share on social media. And we'll see you next time. I've been Kieran Devlin, who you see today. Thanks for watching.